Hey guys, welcome back to Tea with the Supreme Spotlight Sunday. Say hello, ladies.
Hey,
Hello,
hey.
ladies.
I was waiting for it. So, for our Spotlight Sunday, I thought we could talk about narcolepsy because I feel like that's something that's not really talked about so much. So the DSM-5 defines narcolepsy as recurrent episodes of repressible need to sleep, lapsing into sleep, or napping occurring within the same day. These must have been occurring at least 3 times per week over the past 3 months, and must also be the presence of at least one of the following. So, sudden attacks of sleep or sudden loss of muscle tone and hallucinations might occur. Excessive daytime sleepiness. People with narcolepsy fall asleep without any warning, anywhere, anytime. Sudden loss of muscle tone. This is a condition called cataplexy, and it can cause a number of physical changes from slurred speech to complete weakness of most muscles, and it may last up to a few minutes. So it's kind of like episodic, if that's even a word. Sleep paralysis. So people with narcolepsy often experience a temporary inability to move or speak while falling asleep or upon waking. These episodes are usually brief, lasting a few seconds or minutes, but can be very scary. Changes in rapid eye movement sleep. REM sleep is typically when most dreaming happens. And hallucinations. These hallucinations are called hypnagogic hallucinations if they happen as you fall asleep, and hypnopompic hallucinations if they occur upon waking. So the exact cause of narcolepsy is actually unknown. People with type 1 narcolepsy have low levels of chemical hypocretin. Hypocretin is an important neurochemical in your brain that helps regulate wakefulness and REM sleep. Those levels are particularly low in those experiencing that cataplexy I talked about. Exactly what causes the loss, producing cells in the brain isn't known, but experts suspect that it's due to an autoimmune reaction. It's also likely that genetics do play a role in the development of narcolepsy, but the risk of parental passing to this disorder to a child is very low, so only about 1%, which I thought was kind of interesting. Research has also indicated a possible association with exposure to the swine flu virus and a certain form of the H1N1 vaccine that's currently administered in Europe, but they're not exactly clear as to exactly why that is a correlation. So I'm curious what you guys think of narcolepsy now.
I thought it was interesting that you said it's a result or potential trigger from an autoimmune disorder. I didn't know that, or an autoimmune issue, which is also scary because autoimmune disorders are intense in the first place, and then to add like another level, I couldn't imagine. It's got to be intense to live with and to manage in any like successful capacity without being really draining on your state of well-being.
I know, and I don't know, I can't, like you said, I just can't even imagine like going through this on a daily basis. Like to me, it would be terrifying. Like I love to sleep. Y'all know I love to sleep, but like just being able to fall asleep anywhere, like that's then a safety precaution. That's I don't know.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about the safety aspect, but yeah, I can't imagine. I was on, this is unrelated, but related, I guess. At one point, I was on this medication that I had to take, well, I was recommended to take, but it was making me so incredibly sleepy that I was falling asleep at my desk at work, and I had to take naps in my car on lunch. And then I told the doctors, like, I cannot take this. And they're like, this is the only thing that you can take. And I was like, I cannot take this. Like, I can't function. So to be in that state and have like no control over it or consistently be in that state, I couldn't imagine. There's a website called known.narcolepsy.com, and they have a podcast of videos of people sharing their personal stories. And as I was just flipping through it, there's a woman on here and it says she's a graduate student living with narcolepsy. And I'm like, graduate school itself is just a struggle. So adding something like that on top of it, so intense.
Those were my thoughts because, he's like, oh, you fall asleep. And it sounds so condescending, I guess, to just say, oh, you just fall asleep somewhere, as if it's not a issue or a problem. And the truth of the matter is, like, everything about your life has to shift around this disorder. How you work, how you travel, the company you keep, to make sure that if you're out, you're with someone and you're safe. Your personal safety, all those things, how you will be received by employers, professors, whatever environment that you're in. Yeah, that is, when you think about it, that's terrifying.
I remember I've seen some videos that people have recorded of themselves who do have this, and like they always have to have a companion with them wherever they go. So finding somebody who's willing to take on that responsibility, whether it be like your partner, your parents, a sibling, or whatever, like they have to sacrifice so much too to make sure nothing happens to the individual who's suffering from narcolepsy.
100%. And then I wanted to bring up, because I did find there was a list of complications that I found. So there's a lot of public misunderstanding of the condition. So narcolepsy can cause a lot of serious problems for you professionally and personally, like we were just talking about. Others may see you as lazy or lethargic, and your performance may suffer at school or work. Interference with intimate relationships, which I didn't really even think of this until I was reading about it. So intense feelings such as anger and joy can trigger signs of narcolepsy, such as the cataplexy, causing affected people to withdraw from emotional interactions. So yeah, I don't know. I'm a very emotional person, so like for me, that's very scary. Physical harm. So sleep attacks may result in physical harm to people with narcolepsy. So you are at an increased risk of a car accident if you have an attack while driving, and your risk of cuts and burns is greater if you fall asleep while preparing food. People with narcolepsy are also more likely to be overweight and to be obese, and the weight gain may be related to a low metabolism from the sleeping too much. Yeah, I I don't know. I don't know what to say because I've never actually met somebody with narcolepsy. However, I hope I do so that I can understand this more. I can have a conversation about it, because I don't know, you see the videos, or you see like the media portrayal of it, and it's just like, oh, sometimes they fall asleep while they're next to a bed. No, the reality is they're falling asleep in their everyday life doing daily tasks,
As a parent, this terrifies me. I'm thinking of when my son was, you know, um completely dependent, that age when you are, were you feeding? Were you walking down the steps with your infant in your arms? Like, I think really thinking about the consequences of everyday life and how this affects your everyday life. Even me now thinking, and of course it's not the same, but thinking about the medications that I have to take, that I have to schedule them at a particular time because like Julie described earlier, one of the medications she was taking, it literally, I the drug addicts have those reactions where they just fall asleep mid sentence. And the perception of someone, when we talk about disorders and diseases and diagnoses, the perception, the physical, the external perceptions that you have, and having to deal with those things, that and how you deal with them and handle everyday life, that has to be um painstakingly hard.
Yes. So even though this is a very serious disorder, there is a really good website that I found for those who are suffering from narcolepsy, and it's called narcolepsynetwork.org. We will put the link in our bio. And this particular organization provides support groups, educational materials, informational videos. They actually hold conferences every year, which I think is pretty cool. They have resources for sleep centers and specialists, which I think for somebody with narcolepsy or any sleep disorder should always be working with a sleep specialist as well as a counselor. They have stuff for students, for employers, for employees. They actually have they highlight the narcolepsy and driving laws on their website. And there's also international organizations that support narcolepsy. And they do have a Twitter too, which is pretty cool. So I think just normalizing this conversation, like, yes, this is a very scary disease. However, if you do know someone with narcolepsy, know that there are resources not only to support them, but to support the caregivers as well in education.
I do want to make a comment about the sleep specialist only because I had to take one of my sons to a sleep specialist at one point because he was an avid sleepwalker. But it was a really interesting experience because we went to like a sleep center. It was like you bring your overnight bag and you go there, and they hooked my son up to all kinds of wires and stuff. But they try to make it as comfortable as possible, and you stay in a room that's essentially like a hotel room and a comfy bed, and they're just hooked up to machines, and then they just monitor you through the night. So you just go and literally sleep there like you normally would. And then in the morning they take off all the wires, and then they can assess how it went. So it's not like super intense. It's a little odd, but it's not like a super intense experience. So it's worth it if you have concerns about your sleeping, whether or not it's narcolepsy. If you have some concerns about sleeping, that's another way they can find things like sleep apnea and such. So it is very important to make sure that you're sleeping healthy.
Yeah, and working with a trusted provider. I know we always go back to this, but trusting your healthcare providers is so important. Because I actually had to get a sleep study done. And that was actually ordered by my primary care doctor because she's like, XYZ, and we got to make sure that you don't have the COPD, and you don't need to be hooked up to machines. So like working with providers that have your best interest at heart is definitely very important, especially with any mental disorder, but especially with narcolepsy. So yeah. And that is our episode on narcolepsy. Any final thoughts, ladies?
Just take care of yourself. We will continue, like we mentioned earlier, we'll continue to educate ourselves. This isn't an area that we're super familiar with, but I appreciate Cass for shining a spotlight on it, and we'll continue to educate ourselves. And if you have experience or knowledge, feel free to share it, because we love to learn, and it'll only help us be more competent and compassionate people and more competent counselors in the future.
100%.
I appreciate you for highlighting something that is not familiar to us and bringing the importance of it, because especially with the resources that you presented, that not only benefit the sufferer, but those that are suffering with them, because no one suffers in isolation by themselves. There's always something or an additional, usually, can't say forever, but so bringing this to light so that it is given the due diligence and respect, research, all the things that go along with it. So we appreciate that, Cass.
Of course, always here to educate. And like Julie said, if you have any experiences, let us know in the comments. Leave us a voicemail on Anchor. We would love to hear your story and share with us. We love to hear from you guys. So with that, we hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. Do not get the Sunday scaries. Get a restful night's sleep, and we will see you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.